4.1. Today I want to talk about chapter 4. I want to talk about chapter 4 in two different lectures. The first one will cover visual aids, mapping, and the outline, and some of the changes there. And then the second one, we will talk about support, research, and the evaluation, and capture everything else that's new in the chapter. There's really not much new in the chapter. We're taking the same skills that you've already developed and expanding those and applying them more broadly and more thoroughly. So again, not a lot of new things, but new applications of things. The first one is mapping. Actually, let's start with visual aids. The first one's visual aids because we talked about the visual aids when we set up the spatial speech for the hometown speech. If you look on page 62, there's a handout for visual aids. I brought in something for class that I wanted to show. This was a stall study, and it was printed off, I think, when there was a slight change of management in stall study, and they used some new colors, and I like these color contrasts, the tan and the teal maybe, but you might notice that they also incorporated those in the print because they wanted to keep that theme going, and they thought it was a nice look, and it probably was on a computer up close, but as you can see here, when you print it off, it's very hard to read the small print because the contrast is not sharp enough and the text is not large enough. Now I can read the first three words, self-defense training, but I don't know where it happens, when it happens, anything about it, because the details are lost in this fine print that doesn't have good contrast. Likewise, when you're sitting at your screen and you make a PowerPoint slide and it looks good right there in front of you on the screen, it might not look good from the back of the room. So stand up and walk away from your computer screen to the other side of your room. Probably a smaller room than this, but that's okay because your projection's not going to be, it'll be bigger. Like your computer screen is pretty small in your room. So just walking across your room will probably give you a good feel for that. And if you can't read it or can't read it well, then probably it's not going to work well in your audience. So that's the first part. We also talk about mapping, which is not a new concept. In that same spatial pattern speech, the hometown speech, we introduced the concept of a preview. You will open up with an attention getter, then you will preview your main points. Where are we going to go? You'll help us prepare to be a good listener by telling us what we're going to be listening to. Just like a good traveler, it helps if we know where we're going to go, and that way I can be a good passenger. We talked about that first concept of mapping, but that's the only one that comes into play in chapter 3, or level 3, really. The rest come into play in level 4. So we see those again as a reminder in chapter 4. They're on page 67. This also opens up a concept that we'll get into in the outline, which you see on page 71 and 72. You have a sample outline for level 4. What should a level 4 outline look like? We're upping the quality of the expectations. Level 3 says I want to see. I want to be an average speaker, an average outline person. I can collect my thoughts on a piece of paper, organize them, get up and give a speech. To be above average, you need to organize a little better, a little more thoroughly, develop a little more thoroughly, be prepared to give a bigger speech that's supported with evidence and research and share that with your audience. And you probably need to be ready to do some revision and improvement as you develop your speech. So at this point, we're raising it from a handwritten outline to an outline done in a word processing program so that you can go back and make those changes and corrections more smoothly and more neatly, and then print off an outline that you can use. So level 4 and 5 need to be submitted as a digital outline or as a print off from a computer, not a handwritten outline. One of the things you see in this new outline, if you go over to 71 and 72, the outline is broken down now more clearly into introduction, body, conclusion. And the hometown speech preps that well because You have an introduction now that's more thoroughly developed with an opening attention getter and a preview of the main points. Those are all in the introduction. Your conclusion will mirror that by having a review of the main points and a closing attention getter. And in between that, you have the body, which has the main points, the supporting points, the development, the supporting information or research. All of that's in the body. That's why the main points are listed. Your opening attention getter is not point one of your main points. It's part of your introduction. Point one for your main points comes in the body of your speech. When we get to chapter 5, you have Monroe's motivated sequence. That's an outlining pattern that goes from the beginning to the end. So that doesn't have an introduction, body, conclusion quite the same way, because that sequence takes you from the opening attention getter to the call for action, which is in your conclusion. And really the body of the speech would be problem, solution, benefits. That's the body of the speech. But the entire speech goes through those 5 points. In informative, or level 4, your main points can be any of those patterns you've already used. It could be topical points, problem, solution, informative, cause, effect, spatial. You select the pattern that's most appropriate for your topic, and those go in the body. The introduction will be the same for everybody. Opening attention getter, preview, conclusion, review, closing attention getter. And as you look at that, you see one of the other elements that we're talking about here is supporting material. You will see a bibliography now has been added. The 3C, 4, and 5 have a bibliography in the outline, not part of the speech. You don't need to put it in your PowerPoint if you're doing a PowerPoint. I'm the person that needs to see it. If somebody has questions, they can ask to see your bibliography so that they can get some of that information personally. But they should know where that comes up because you have internal citations. And that might be something as simple as saying, Zhang 2006 said, and that's a trigger for the audience listening. Oh, that was a source. He's quoting someone else's work. Or you could say in a recent Newsweek article and a journal article that I read about such and such on a web page by this group. Those kind of references let us know that this is research. Now, if you're quoting someone who is a scientist, we were doing a speech about developing the coronavirus vaccine, and I'm going to cite the head of the CDC. I probably should let my audience know this person by name is the head of the CDC, or this person by name is a scientist working on a virus or a cure for the coronavirus. So a vaccine or a cure. Let us know who is this person, what are they doing, why am I quoting them for you? That builds that person's credibility, but it also builds your credibility. Because if it's your opinion against my opinion always wins. The audience member will trump the speaker every time, unless the speaker has support from other people. So it's not just me against you, it's me against you and your team is well documented, well researched, well supporting, they agree with you, so now maybe I should listen to what you say because your arguments outweigh mine. But we see that in the outline, and if you put those in the outline, you're a lot more likely to say them when you deliver your speech. And you can get credit for internal citations both in the outline and in the delivery of the speech. So make sure to put those in your outline so they'll be both places. The outline gives you a good idea of how you develop. You've got the preview, the review. You have examples of how you can put transitional statements in there. If you want to signpost, it will be those large Roman numerals, 1, 2, 3 in the body. That would be what you signpost as you get there. My second point is traditional China or transitional China. My third point is modern China. So I can see those quickly because they are set off with those Roman numerals. So look over that outline. The outline is a key part of chapter 4. If you understand all the components of the outline, you should be in good shape there.